Hi everyone, welcome to another video brought to you by Math Icon Institute. In this video, we'll be discussing division of decimals by decimals, where we'll divide decimals by decimals. In the last video, we learned how to divide decimals by whole numbers. But in this video, we'll be dividing decimals by decimals. We can't divide decimals directly by decimals. We can't. So we have to convert the divisor to a whole number before we can divide. For example, the first question here, 574.07 divided by 0.7. So we want to divide in this case. In this case, 0.7 is the divisor. Yes. But unfortunately, we can't divide directly by a decimal. That means we have to convert this divisor to a whole number. That has to be a whole number. 0.7 has to be a whole number before we can divide. It's not a problem if the dividend is still a decimal. I meant in this case now, 574.07. If it's still a decimal, there's no problem. You can divide. But if the divisor is a decimal, you can't divide. We have to convert it to a whole number. How do we do that? So 0.7 now is a decimal. We can convert it to a whole number by multiplying by 10. Why did you say that? That's because if you want to convert a decimal to a whole number, simply multiply that decimal by a multiple of 10. Either by 10 or by 100, by 1000, by 10,000. How do we now know which multiple of 10 you have to multiply the number by, the decimal number by? So we know that simply by the number of digits the decimal has after the decimal point. For example, 0.7 has just one digit after the decimal point. That means multiply it by 10 to give what? The whole number, and that's 7. In case of 0.81, it has two digits after the decimal point. That means you have to multiply it by 100 times 100 and give it to 1. As for 0.312, it has 3 digits after the decimal point. So times 1000 will give a whole number, 312. So check the number of numbers it has per decimal points. That determines the multiple of 10. If it has one digit times 10, that's two digits times 100, that's 3 digits times 1000, 4 digits times 10,000. So in this case of ours now, 0.7 times 10 will give you a whole number. That means we should multiply it by 10. Now it's a fraction. We must not alter the fraction. So that is, it is wrong to say 0.7 times 10. Then we have 574.07. That's wrong. We've altered the fraction. In order to avoid that, multiply the numerator also by 10. That is, after multiplying the divisor by the appropriate multiple of 10, either 10, either 100, either 1000, you have to multiply the numerator also by that same number to let the fraction remain the same. So in this case, this is what we have. So when we multiply this, as for 574.07, I'm multiplying by 10. Move the decimal points to the right just once. So because you have 1 0 in 10, that's 1. 574.0.7. For 0.7 times 10, it becomes 7. Because decimal point shifts to the right once, that's 7. So we can now divide because our divisor is now a whole number. We have the division house. Place the divisor here, 7, the dividend, 5,740.7. So let's divide like we used to do. 7 in 5. 5 is less than 7. So we proceed to taking two numbers at a time. So we now take 57 at a time. 7 in 57, that's 8. Because there is multiple of 7 we have. 12 7 is 56. And 7 in 56 is 8. Don't bother about the remainder. So 7 times 8 is 56. 56. Place it directly under 57, right? Then we subtract. So we have 140. Then we have 7. This minus here, you ignore it while subtracting here. The minus sign, the division, the decimal point there, you ignore it. the point here, don't put it here. No, don't bother about that. You ignore the decimal point, but you have to put it here. You have to put it here. So how do you know where to put it here? Let's go on. 7 in 1 now. 1 is less than 7, so you proceed to say 7 in 14. That's 2. So we write 2. 7 times 2, 14. Under the 14 here also, you subtract. 14 minus 14 is 0. Then there's a 0 here before, right? Then you transfer the 0 here, and then the 7, you transfer it here also. Now take note, there's a difference between these two zeros. There's a difference between them. The 0 we got here by subtracting 14 minus 14, that 0 is quite different from the 0 you have in the question initially. The 0 you have in 140 here. It's in the number normally. So there's a difference between them. As for the 0 you got from 14 minus 14 is 0, you ignore the 0. You don't have any business with that 0. Just leave the 0 the way it is. As for the 0 that is in the number initially, that 0 that's 140, you treat it like it's a number. So we now say 7 in the 0 here, the one we have in the number initially. So 7 in that 0 is 0. Since you have it just 0, then you put 0 here. As for the 0 you got from saying 14 minus 14, you have 0. You ignore that 0. You ignore it. You leave the 0 there. As for the decimal points, we can see that we have 5740 point, right? After dividing up to the point where we said 7 is 0, the 0 that is coming from here is the 0 here, the 0 here. I got to this point. After getting to that 0, what do we do? Put a decimal point here. Because in the initial divisor, the decimal point says after the 0. So after dividing up to the point where we go to the 0 here, we cannot put our decimal points there. We cannot proceed. So now we can see 7 in 7 we have here. Okay, now 7 in 0, we said there before, is 0, right? Then 7 times 0, we have 0. Then 0 minus 0 is now 0. 7. So this 0 is not like the 0 we have here. So the 0 here also now, we do not need it anymore. It's not like the 0 we add here. Because we already say 0 minus 0 and then 0. So we got the 0 by what? So subtracting. This 0 also, we do not need it again. Then we're not left with 7. Then 7 in 7, we'll say 1. 7 times 1 is 7. Then subtract 7 minus 7 is 0. This 0 also, we are not in need of it anymore. Hence, we got it by saying 7 minus 7, and then we have 0. So that's the end of the division. So our quotient is now 820.1. That's the quotient. Don't worry if there's some ambiguity in the division. As you solve more questions to become clear. Second question we have here, 82.8 divided by 0.03. In this case also, the divisor is a decimal. You convert it to a whole number, right? And then you can see that there are two numbers after the decimal point, 0 and 3. That's telling us that we have to multiply that divisor by 100 to make it a whole number. And like we said earlier, we have to multiply the numerator by that same 100. So 0.03 times 100. So let's proceed. This is 100 now. You have two zeros there. I am multiplying. This decimal point, move it to the right twice. 1, 2. So you have 3 left. 3. For the numerator also, you are moving the decimal point also twice because I'm multiplying by 100. So 1, 2. So now the decimal point is now here. And then you have an empty space here. What do you do with that? Fill it with 0. You can remember. Fill that with 0. So you have 8280. 8,280. So we're dividing this now. The division house, the divisor is 3. The dividend is 8280. Then we start dividing. 3 in 8. So the highest multiple of 3 before 8 is 6. So 3 in 6 is 2. We are saying 2. As for the remainder, don't worry about the remainder. 3 times 2, 6. Place that 6 directly below this 8. No, we are dealing with 8 now. Directly below that 8, directly below 8. You subtract 8 minus 6 is 2. 2. Then you transfer these numbers down. 2, 8, 0. Put them down normally. Then 3 into 2 is less than 3. So what do? You now go to 3 in 22. If you take the divisor with one number in the dividend, then the number in dividend is much smaller than the divisor. What do? Now take two numbers at a time. By taking 2 initially, 2 is less than 3. What do we now do? Now say 3 in 22. Take two numbers. 3 in 22. That's 7. 3 times 7 is 21. Place that 21 under, so the 21 will be directly under the 22. Directly under it. We subtract. So we have 1. Then the 8 here, transfer it down. The 0 here, transfer it down also. We have 180 left. Also 3 in 1. 1 is less than 3. We just proceed to say 3 in 18. That's 6, right? That's 6. 3 times 6 is 18. Place the 18 directly below this. Subtract. You have 0. You have 0. Again, take note at this point. The 0 we have here is different from the 0 we have here. Remember, this 0 we have here is the 0 we transferred from the 0 here. So we still need that 0. It's part of the original divisor, or original dividend rather. But for the 0 you have here, it is gotten from saying 18 minus 18 is 0. For that reason, the 0 in the brackets here is not needed. Said 18 minus 18 and it gave us 0. For that reason, this 0 is not needed. As for the 0 we transferred from 180, we still need it. So we are saying 3 in that 0, this one. So it's 0. And 3 times 0 is 0. Now we can now subtract this also. 0 minus 0 is now 0. So this 0 also is not needed anymore. Since we got it from saying 0 minus 0, so it's not like the 0 we have here. So that's the end of the division. So we can now say our quotient is 2,760. The question we have in the list: 351, 35.1 divided by 2.7. So we can write this as 35.1 over 2.7. In this case also, you can see the divisor is a decimal number. What do? Convert it to a whole number. How do we do that? We can see that it has just one number after decimal point. That means we can multiply it by 10. Like we said earlier, we have to multiply the numerator by that same 10, so that the fraction remains the same, times 10. So we multiply by 10. Decimal point is shifting to the right just once. 351. For the divisor also, shift decimal point to the right just once. We have 27 left. We are dividing 351 by 27. So 27 in 3 is smaller. So we now see 27 in 35. So that's just 1. 27 times 1, 27. We subtract. So when we subtract this, what do we have? 35 minus 27 is 8, right? Then we transfer this one, transfer it downwards, 1. Now 27 in 8, 8 is smaller. So we now see 27 in 30, in 81. That's 3. 27 times 3 is 81. We can now subtract. Then we have 0 when we subtract. So we can end the division. So our quotient is 13. The next question. So you can see this question. So we want to divide 6.988 by 0.4. So it's already in the division house. This is the divisor. This is the dividend. Also, the divisor in this case is a decimal. That converts to whole number. And since there's just one digit after the decimal point, we can multiply by 10. 0.4 times 10. To avoid altering the fraction, what do we do? Multiply the numerator also by 10. 6.988 times 10. And now proceed. Multiplying by 10, move the decimal point to the right just once. 1. So this becomes 4. For the numerator also, move it just to the right once. 1. Decimal point is now here. Now 69.88 over 4. So it becomes 4, then 69.88. So we have 4 in 6. That's 1. 4 times 1 is 4. You subtract. Place the 4 directly below the 6. You subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2. Write 2. Then transfer 9 downwards. Then transfer 8. Then transfer 8. As for the decimal point, we said while dividing inside the division house here, while subtracting division house here, don't bother putting the decimal point. But you have to put it in the quotient. How do you put it? The patient first. So we said 4 in 6 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. And we have 2988. After now dividing, so we now say 4 in 2. 2 is smaller, right? Now say 4 in 29. When we're another with 4 in 29, you know we have 69 here. It is the 9 here we transferred here. And the decimal point is after our 9 here, right? So after saying 4 in 29, what does that give us? That gives us 7. Now put decimal point. Decimal point is after the 9 we have here. After transferring the 9 downwards, say, after dividing 29 by 4, we have 7. So it is then we now put our decimal point because it is after the 9 here. So also, after dividing 29 here, so we have decimal point here. That's how we place decimal point. 4 times 7, we now have 28. 28. Subtract. We have 1. Also, the 8 here, transfer it downwards. The 8 here, transfer it downwards. We have 188. 4 in 18 is 4. 4 times 4, 16. Subtract. 18 minus 16, we have 2. The 8 here, transfer it downwards. Then 4 in 28 is 7. 4 times 7, 28. Now subtract. Then we have 0. Since we've gotten 0, end the division. The quotient is 17.47. The next question. We are dividing 77.04 by 2.4. Also, in this case, the divisor is a decimal number. So we convert to a whole number. How do you convert? So we can see that 77.04 is the dividend. 2.4 is the divisor. So this is how we place it. So since 2.44, which is the divisor, is having one number after decimal point, what do? We multiply by just 10. And we must also multiply 77.04 by 10, just like we've said earlier. So we proceed. Times 10. So move decimal point to the right just once. Here also, just once. Decimal point is now here. It is now 770.4 over 24. Decimal point is now here, which is now 24. So the division house, we have 24 as a dividend, as a divisor, 770.4 as a dividend. So we proceed. 24 in 7, 7 is smaller. Now see 24 in 77, that's 3. 24 times 3 is 72. So we subtract. 27 minus 72, that's 5. 50. So 5, 0, and then 4. The 0 here, transfer it downwards. The 4 here, transfer it downwards. So the decimal point here, we do not put it. Put it in the quotient. Now, the decimal point is after the 0, right? When we transfer the 0 downwards here. Now, 2 in 50. 24 in 50 is 2, right? We cannot put decimal points here. Since the decimal point is after the 0 here, and then we transfer the 0 downwards here, we are now saying 24 in 50. So the 0 is in that 50. So when we get the quotient for that division now, which is 2. We're now put our decimal points there. So 24 times 2 is 48. 48 subtract 50 minus 48, that gives us 2. Before here, transfer it downwards, 24. When 24, we have just 1. Then 24 times 1, 24. Subtract, then you have 0. End the division. So the answer is 32.1. And then finally, we are dividing 205 by 0.41. Also, the divisor in this case is a decimal. I have to convert it to a whole number. Now, the divisor has 2 numbers after the decimal point. That means we have to multiply it by 100. 0.41 times 100. That will affect the numerator. So we have to say 205 times 100 also for the numerator. So we proceed, the numerator becomes 20500. For the denominator, I'm moving decimal point twice because it is 100. Then it will be to the right. That's 1, 2. That's 41. We can now divide. Now, we now proceed as follows. 41 in 2. 2 is smaller. See 41 in 20. 20 is smaller. Now say 41 in 205. So that's 5. 41 times 5, 205. Place it directly under 205. Now subtract. 205 minus 205, that's 0. So you have a 0 here. Again, the 0 we got by saying 205 minus 205. That 0 is quite different from the 0 in the divisor normally. In the dividend normally. So the dividend normally we have 0, 0. That's why these 2 0 downwards from the dividend. Right? So that 2 zeros we transfer downwards is different from the 0 we got from saying 205 minus 205. As for the 0 we have here, we leave it. But for the 2 zeros we transfer downwards here, so we take them one by one. 41 in 0, so we have 0 here. 41 times 0 is 0. Again, we subtract. This 0 minus this 0, we have 0. So that 0 also is not needed anymore. Then the final 0 we have here. 41 in 0 also is 0. Then 41 times 0 is 0. So we can now subtract the 0 minus 0 also. So we now have this 0 finally. So you can see, before we stop, we have to make sure that the 0 we have there is the one we got from subtracting 2 numbers. If we still have a 0 there and it's directly transferred from the dividend, we can't ignore the 0. But if it's a 0 we got from saying 0 minus 0 or 10 minus 10 or anything, we ignore that 0. That's the end of that. But for a 0 we got, for example, in this case now, we transfer this 0 downwards here, this 0 downwards here. We can ignore them. Here now we now say 0 minus 0, give us this 0, you cannot ignore this 0. Here also 0 minus 0, so we cannot ignore it. So at this point now we would say 41 in the 0 here. So in the 0 here, 41 times 0, we have 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. You can ignore that. Now also 41 in the 0 we have here. That gives the 0 here. Then 41 times 0, now have the 0 here. So you cannot subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. So the 2 zeros here are gotten from subtracting. So we can ignore them. That's the end of the division. So our quotient is 500. Thank you.